You know, I could talk about this for hours, so.
Welcome to a special edition of Radio Her, brought to you by the Women in Business Association at U of T Scarborough. In this 5-part series, hosted by Elina and Matthew Fuller, we explore entrepreneurship through the perspective of failure and how we can redefine, accept, and overcome this inevitable obstacle in our lives.
Okay, so when it comes to work, I'm not the best example to lead by I need to balance my life, because when I'm working, I'm pretty intense. And a lot of times I'm so committed to making something work that I kind of put everything to the wayside. And if it's not working, it just consumes my entire being. And it's very frustrating to people around me and to myself as well. And I find that I'm constantly in those moments where, especially when you haven't succeeded yet, you do get exhausted quite easily, because you lose those motivational elements that are so critical to your career. What do you do?
I mean, that's a great question. I think I work with so many people on how do you keep balance in doing something that is inherently taxing? Because as entrepreneurs, it's so easy to neglect the things that we need for ourselves when we're so hyper-focused on the success of whatever it is we're trying to build. So we might neglect going to the gym or having a balanced diet or maintaining relationships. But that starts to chip away at our banks of energy, our resilience, because we can't just give and give and give of ourselves constantly without taking something in. So what I often work with people on is, how do you recharge? And I often say to people, sometimes we need to slow down to speed up. Like sometimes the best thing that you can do is to take a break. But it can feel super counterintuitive. And I say that very hypocritically, because as I build my own things, I'm working on a package or a workshop or talking on a podcast or on the radio. Like you can get swept up in the momentum of things. But then you start to feel that daze where you're like, ugh, I have not seen anything but a screen for the entire day or for the entire week. So there will be a lot of checking in of, how are you taking care of yourself? And so what have you learned then? Like you say, you're not the best, but over the span of your career, what has wellness whilst creating your professional life? What does that look like? How has that evolved?
Well, I mean, I've definitely changed over my career. I've been working, I used to work 24/7 and everything goes to the wayside. But now you have to consciously take time away. But I don't look at balance in a 24-hour span. I look at balance over a year, if not longer. You kind of go, okay, I do want it all. I want family, I want my friends, I want my relationships, and I want my career. But there are going to be time periods where you are hyper-focused on one thing or another. It just means you have to consciously then take time away from that. Like you said, go slow to go fast. Because in order for you to, when you remove yourself from one aspect, you go back with a clearer mind. So I consciously take time away to spend time with my husband or my son and spend time with friends. And then I go back with a fresh kind of outlook. And so that's definitely changed over my career, and I'm definitely better for it, and I can sustain a lot longer. But it's still difficult, because when you are an entrepreneur, you feel like you're it, like you're the one making all the decisions and everything falls on your lap and you're responsible for everyone else around you. So there's this inherent pressure that you have to deal with. So that's something that you have to consciously sit back and go, okay, everyone's an adult. Everyone can take care of themselves. I'm not responsible for everyone, but I am responsible first. It's like the airplane thing where it goes, help yourself before you help others. So that learning that has actually been the toughest. Yeah.
And I think that especially you've mentioned something that just popped up an image in my head is around that wellness and that the personalization of it. I think it's super important that you take the time to incorporate your own wellness into your business plan.
For sure.
Because you have a very different identity and you exist in a very different way in life than I do. So our wellness plans will look different. Our priorities are different. So if we just try to say, make sure you're taking time to do this, 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 and this, but well, maybe this is not important to me, so I don't need to do that. And there's something that I work with people a lot on called planned neglect, because if you decide that actually for right now, this thing is going to take a back seat and I'm okay with that, that feels so different than just arriving and realize, oh, I have not done this. I didn't intentionally plan to do this. So deciding, actually, it's okay that I am not going to go traveling this year because I need to do this, I need to do this, I need to do this. But if you get to the end of the year, you've not taken enough breaks, you've not done this, whatever, that sensation of I have deprived myself, I feel drained, I've given up everything to this project, it adds so much pressure to not only the project to work, but it becomes like a pressure cooker where you judge the success of your own life and your own happiness on where it's going because you've given unintentionally.
Yeah, and as entrepreneur, we're also delusional sometimes in rejecting the word failure. Failure is not an option, we always say to ourselves, right? It's not a thing for us. So to accept that we're not putting 110%, which doesn't exist, into something is ultimately failing the company. You're failing the people who are believing in you. So that's something that I think entrepreneurs do feel, is that unless you're the one not taking the vacation, you're working 24/7 and you're neglecting everybody around you, you're not giving 110%. So I don't think that exists. I think that's kind of a thought of the past. But there is a balance, right? Like I said, I don't look at balance, work-life balance, as something that's over a 24-hour span, which means there are periods where I don't go on vacation, but because I work so intensely. But I will then, once I finish I set these goals where I go, okay, in the next 3 months, I need to get these different projects done. And unless they're done, I'm not going to go on vacation. But if they're done, I'm going to reward myself with a trip to the spa or a trip somewhere or whatever it is. So doing that is something that helps me continue to motivate myself too, right? Instead of just looking at it as, oh, I failed to balance my life in a period of time.
Which is so important, because so many people, they do something, it's accomplished, next thing, and they never take time to celebrate what they've done, or whether it was a success or not. We put energy into things and we should congratulate ourselves. Whether it went exactly how we wanted it to or not, we put energy out into it. And so I love that insight of, if it's done, I'm going to do it. It's not just this rolling thing, because as entrepreneurs, nothing's ever done. Like, there's always something more. So you have to be super intentional about, and that's why I say put wellness plans into your business plans, because you need to take care of yourselves. And it's really funny. I said I'm hypocritical in this, but we get so frustrated with the people that we work with when we see them not doing it. It's like, you're suffering, the work's suffering, you're miserable to be around. And so we get frustrated with them, but it's so hard for ourselves to go, I can just breathe for a minute. So I love that insight.
Yeah. And we need to stop thinking about when I know I have colleagues or employees in the past that says, you know what, I want work-life balance, Elina, so I'm not going to do this project. So on the other side of the coin is, I'm not going to work hard because I need work-life balance. Well, you're not going to succeed, are you? Right? So there is the balance of, what you give is often what you get. Yes, you need to give to yourself and reserve time for wellness and to celebrate and to reward yourself. But in this stage, I think it's so important for us to focus our energies on making it work too. So what we have to do is forgive ourselves and not celebrate too early, or forgive ourselves when we are not doing all of the things. We're not spending, I didn't spend time with my partner or my friends that weekend. I had to skip that birthday party, because that happens. The thing is, you cannot give yourself too much guilt and too much grief when you skip something and say, well, that's not work-life balance. It's like, no, well, I'm kind of making it work. That's why. So finding that forgiveness, I think, is also really important. Otherwise, it feels pretty exhausting.
Yeah, it's that, and I think that's why we're here doing it. It's like that navigating that line is so difficult. It's so easy to fall into one extreme where we're like, I'm doing self-care. And it's like, okay, well, if you're only going to focus on what feels good, then the ambition you have is going to take a strike. And as adults, you have to make that decision. Life is not great all the time. We don't get to feel good. And if you really want to work for something, to achieve great things, it's going to cost you something. Nothing is free.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, opportunity costs, right? When it comes to when we were taught in management. And it's really about making sure that we do balance things over time, not in a period, and not definitely not over 24 hours. So it's really looking at it differently, finding that leniency for ourselves to be rewarded, but also pushing ourselves in the right time.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's really not going to work. And one of my clients kind of gave me an awakening advice once and said, you are the asset of the company.
Yeah.
Without you, you are the product, because I owned this agency for 10 years. And if I was sick and I wasn't doing well, then nobody's doing the project.
Yeah.
Right. So you have to treat yourself as the product as well. And the product is the most important thing in a company, isn't it? Because they're the ones servicing the client, especially if you were in the service industry like I was. So that's something that we need to be cognizant of, is we are an asset of the company. So we need to take care of ourselves.
Yeah. I mean, I think we could talk about this forever, but I think that's a good point for now. Thank you so much for sharing that insight.